Hey, you're listening to Stop the Scroll, a social media marketing podcast, and I'm your host, Heidi Schmidt. I'm a social media strategist and agency owner with over 15 years of marketing experiences helping businesses grow online. We'll be diving into what you need to know so that you can show up confidently online without the overwhelm. Get your notebook ready to jot down some amazing marketing gems, and let's dive into it. Welcome back to another episode of Stop the Scroll. I'm your host, Heidi Schmidt. And today I wanted to talk about audiences. So I have had, and I have this conversation with every client that I work with, like, who's your audience? That is one of the first questions that I ask. After I ask, what do you do and why do people care? What makes you unique? I was having a conversation at a lunch recently, and I was like, you have to know who your audience is. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was like, well, I help women. And I was like, what specifically do they come to you from? What are the conversations that you have with them? Because here's the thing. If you don't know what makes your audience tick, and this might be a dated marketing term, but what that zero moment of truth when they have the aha, I need this person. When you don't know what they need to hear from you, then you're kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? So having those broad categories really, really doesn't help with our content, our messaging, our offers, all that kind of stuff. So today, and this might be a little bit of a shorter episode, I don't really have any sidebars for y'all today. Maybe I do. Maybe I'll come up with something. But I want to help you get that clarity on who your audience is so that better you understand who exactly you're marketing to, the more your message is going to resonate, right? So we're going to frame this kind of like a little guided exercise here. And grab your piece of paper, grab your notebook. I always say that in the intro. But specifically, I want you to think about this and think about, what challenges are you specifically having in marketing today? And then frame it, get really granular with your audience. And I'm going to say this first. You need to know their demographics. And when I say demographics, I mean, what's their age range? What stage of life are they in? Are they new parents? Are they younger? Are they older? Are they mid-career? Are they retirees? Where do they live? Do they have kids? Knowing all these kind of helps us know where they hang out online. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean? Well, if you're trying to market to 50-somethings, you're not going to be on TikTok. That's just a fact of life. Think about their identity and their role. Beyond just, for me, I market to business owners. Okay, well, what kind of business owners? Well, usually they're professional service providers. I know what level of money they make, and I work with some newer businesses, and that's why I've really expanded this year into offering strategy sessions, and I have shifted my consulting offer into strategy deep dives, which is like a 3 to 4 month program where we deep dive into your strategy to get you clarity, to get you a plan, all that kind of fun stuff. But I have shifted because I've really kind of honed in on my audience. And here's the one thing that from the people in my masterclass to my clients that I work with on retainer, they hate doing social media themselves. They hate it. They find it overwhelming. They don't know if what they're doing is working, or they just don't have the time for it. Those are kind of their three things, their three biggest pain points. So beyond understanding, women or business owners or homeowners, well, what kind of businesses do you work with? Do you work with online coaches? Do you work with nonprofits? I could see myself, honestly, and I'm going to kind of crystal ball my life here in my 5-year plans. I have enjoyed my work on the Democratic Central Committee so much over the past year. And I talked last week about my mindset about showing up. And it's funny because one of the things that really kind of sparked me kind of dipping my toe back in politics after a 10-year big ol' FU to the political space was a friend of mine coming to me. She had been newly appointed and she brought me into her office and was like, hey, I really need help with my social media presence. And I really helped her. Like, one, I managed it while she was in session up until her next reelection. And I helped her get that confidence that she needed to show up. And I would love to be that kind of consultant to other political candidates, especially moms, young people don't really need that kind of coaching, but like first-time candidates, wouldn't that be amazing? That's just like a dream that I'm like holding out on a carrot. We'll see what happens in 2026, obviously, because I'm running myself. But, when we think about our audiences, and that was a little bit of a sidebar, sorry. When we think about our audiences, we have to think about not just like who we want to market to, because we all have like this vision of our ideal client and everything in our brain or our ideal audience. But more so than that, who is actually engaging with your content? Who is actually showing up for you? Who is actually your clients? What do they care about? What motivates them? And what frustrates them and stresses them the heck out, Understanding also what those psychographics are, because we think we know who our audience is, but for me, over the past 5 years, I've really kind of shifted my audience to not just be the people who want to outsource their social media. No. Because anyone wants to do that. And, I had a conversation a couple of years ago with someone, and God, it turned into like this hour-long in-person discovery meeting, which turned out to be a total waste of my time when the person said to me, well, I can pay $100 a month for this. And it was like content mill, like churning out the same generic content for anyone. There's a difference between people who see social media as a tool in their marketing toolbox versus people who are like, well, I just need to show up. I just need to be there. I don't think social media actually does anything. Those are not my clients. Those are people that I will be like, find an intern or find a VA, because they're not going to want to pay my pricing. And, Margot, my ChatGPT, recently told me that I was already running a lean operation and that I should increase my prices. And I was like, whew, which I'm not going to lie, like I'm really feeling there has been some pruning of clients over the past year. And it has not always been a one-to-one, one in, one out kind of game. Business is tough. It's hard. Anyhow, I digress. So you have to know not just their demographics, their identity and their role, what type of businesses they run, especially if you're in the B2B space, their mindset and their values. What do they care about? What's motivating them, especially in business? What their pain points are, because you have to know what keeps them up at night. That's where you really make that emotional connection, right? Like, you also have to understand, like, what's the cost of them not working with you, right? Like, they have a problem that you solve. So you have to know what the cost is of them not working with you. And I'm pausing because I want you to think about that. What are their goals? Is there an outcome they're chasing? Is it a quality of life? Is it business growth? Is it, we really want to grow our brand, our audience, all of that kind of stuff? Like, what's the outcome that they are chasing? How do they define success? I ask that to every single one of my clients. Like, how do you define success in working with us? Is it a set number of clients? Is it, whatever? Oh my God, I have to quote this Substack that I was reading today. It so resonated with me, and I have to share it. So it was a Substack that I read called Link in Bio, and I'm going to link to it. It might be a paid article. I don't think I get I pay for far too many Substacks, let me tell you. But it was social media hot takes, and I'm gonna mention this because I hear this so much. There's two. One is, you are often not your own audience. Stop killing ideas that work for social because you personally don't get it. It's not for you. And yes, we are not our own audience. Sometimes we are, like, I think I definitely know people who are like, well, I am my ideal client. And maybe you are. But I bet you inspired your ideal client. And your ideal client probably has pain points and desires and goals that you don't think about because your goals are different as the business owner. Right? Think about that. So that was one of the hot takes. And again, these are not my hot takes, although I feel like I should do an article on my own social media, just marketing in general hot takes. The other hot take here was something about ROI. And maybe it was in the interview here. It might have been in the interview. Yes, it was. Okay, so Rachel Carton, who runs this, I probably butchered her name and I apologize for that, but she did an article that also interviewed the social media manager of Duolingo. And it was something about like, we have to stop measuring success of social media with ROI. And if I can find the quote, you know what, I'll just share it. But when we think about our goals with social media, like we have to stop always requiring ROI to marketing. Sometimes the ROI is just brand growth and brand awareness, and you can't always pinpoint that to a number. You know, like I'm going to use my political campaign as an example. Here's an example. So as my audience grows and I'm trying to post there like 4 to 5 times a week, depending on what I have going on, like I built myself a calendar. I haven't been following it because this week, like recently, like just life was lifing. We're just going to leave it at that. Life was lifing. And shit, now I'm losing my train of thought. But okay, so as I grow my audience, you know, my goal obviously is to win, which means to get votes and volunteers and money. Like winning, how you do it is you capture people who are going to vote for you. You capture people who are going to donate to you because campaigns aren't flipping cheap. And you capture the people who want to help you win, who are going to show up on those hot summer days next summer and knock on doors in District 31 with me. Though that's when we think about our overall goal as candidates and our digital presence, it's to 1, like help people get to know us. 2, it's to grow those 3 things. You can't measure based on the size of your audience who is actually going to vote for you. I cannot measure how many people, like as I grow my Instagram following, how many of those people are going to, you know, donate $5, $10, $5,000 to me. So there's no ROI that I can actually measure. I mean, I could get granular and be like, okay, well, how much traffic am I driving to ActBlue and how much traffic is actually coming from social media? And of that social media, like how many people of that social media are actually donating to me? And I will say, I have raised a pretty penny from my own network on my personal Facebook page. That has been I'm not going to say very lucrative because they're all small dollar donations, but there is a value to that. But I am not going to measure the success of my social media efforts on all that. And I don't think a business should either. You know, you cannot always attribute sales and leads to social media because here's the thing, like people use social media so passively. And I was just telling one of my clients this week, I was like, you know, and she's a divorce attorney. And here's the thing. 1, it's really hard to get followers as a divorce attorney. Like her audience has grown. It's probably doubled in the 2 years, almost 2 years that we've worked together. But it has, like, I would expect more than that. But no one's going to follow a divorce attorney because then they're going to be like, well, you're playing your hand, right? So I feel like there are some businesses out there who are just harder to capture followers than others. Like her engagement is up, her reach is up, like her reach is way higher than it was a year ago, but our followers are like trickle. Anyhow, so we've talked about identity and role, we've talked about psychographics, like the mindset, their values, we've talked about their pain points and challenges, we've talked about desires and goals, what are they looking for, how do they define success? We have to understand their behaviors and habits too. And a lot of my clients are like, you know, when I ask them, like, where do they get their news online? Where do they spend their time online? What social platform is most important to them? They're like, what? Why does that matter? Well, do they consume information? Do they like quick tips? Do they read long form blogs? Do they subscribe to a dozen newsletters? I do. Do they watch a lot of YouTube? Do they listen to podcasts? All of that. Because 1, that should drive your overall marketing strategy. That should drive where you're showing up with long form content. If you know that your audience spends a lot of time on YouTube, then you should probably be putting out some long form video content, my friend, versus a Substack. You know, like You don't have to be everywhere when it comes to capturing your audience because your audience is not everywhere. You need to go where they are and be where they are. Where do they spend their time scrolling? Like, are they on TikTok? Are they on Instagram? Do they spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and say F you to Facebook? Like, where do they spend their time online? And there are industry benchmarks to help you understand kind of generally, but also like look at where people are coming from traffic to your website. Where are they coming from? How do they make buying decisions? Are they impulse? Are they research? Do they click on ads a lot? Do they do referrals? Are they a word of mouth person? Like, how do they make their buying decisions when they invest in whether you're a coach or whether you're a business? Like, how do they make those decisions that make them, aha, I need that, Finally, you need to know your differentiators. Why are you the one to help them? What makes you different? What gap do you fill that other people don't? What unique perspective or skill or experience do you have that really connects you to them? So, for me, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm not going to throw any of my clients out here. Instead of just saying, we help business owners show up online without the overwhelm, I typically say, we help service-based businesses who are overwhelmed with social media show up strategically and authentically online. And authentically and strategically kind of go hand in hand. And that's really my differentiator. I'm not just going to bust out some fun reels for you. I want to make sure if we're going to spend the time busting out some fun reels for you, that they're actually going to be content that resonates with your audience. I don't know. I have this whole beef, and I see this a lot. Like, there's so many people that are really content creators, but they don't have that strategic know-how to understand, like, we had a big aha moment with a client of mine recently, and I was like, here's the piece that's missing from our content. Here's what we're not saying. Like, our content's performing fine, but we want to take it to the next level. Here's the piece that's missing. If your content isn't accomplishing your goals, you have to have a partner to say what's missing. And that's where experience really does the trick. Like, that's why having, a social media partner like me who has more than 10 years of marketing experience rather than someone who, I've built up my own following and now I want to manage social media for everyone else. That's the differentiator. And there are lots of people that do that. And if that's for you, that's great. But I will say, because I have had someone literally say to me like, I wouldn't hire a social media manager who didn't have 10,000 followers, which, gut punch. Followers are not leads. Followers are not customers. You cannot base the success of your social media alone on followers alone. So, that all being said, I would encourage you to write out the answers to these questions. If you need help, I am happy to schedule a strategy session. My next masterclass is coming up in October, and it's going to go through Q4 so that you can be set up for success in 2026. And that means getting clarity on your audience. So if you need clarity on your audience, look at who your current customers are. Always start there. Like, hey, look at your current base of clients. What brought them to you? Are there common themes across who they are, their demographics, their type of businesses, all of that kind of stuff? Having that kind of clarity on your audience isn't limiting. You're not limiting yourself. It's empowering. It's knowing who exactly you help and how exactly you help them. Once you get that clarity, that's like an aha moment. The more specific you are, the more you understand those needs and desires and goals of your ideal audience, the easier it is to create that content and to attract those leads. So I encourage you, if you need support with this, I do a whole audience deep dive in my strategy sessions. You're welcome to book one or join me for an upcoming workshop or my upcoming masterclass. You can get on the wait list. Until then, go forth, get some clarity, and create amazing content that stops the scroll for your audience.